It's just so much to unpack. I don't even know where to begin. Alright, episode 6 of WandaVision, and there is so much going on in here. Maybe this is us reading too far into it, but I don't think so. I think everything that's shown on screen is there for a reason, so let's dive into our latest analysis. My name is Sean O'Connell. I'm the managing editor here at CinemaBlend, recapping and going into some further analysis of everything that you guys got to see on screen in WandaVision. We are up through episode number 6, and so if you have not seen episode 6, back out of this video right now, because we are going to get into spoilers, and all the things that we think happened in this episode. And I have to start right off the bat with my big swing theory about what we just witnessed. I think Wanda just invented mutants in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So by the end of the episode, Wanda has expanded the Hex. And she does it out of necessity because she has to save Vision. Vision has penetrated the Hex and made it to the outside, and the minute that he leaves the safety and comfort of Wanda's bubble, he starts to decompose. He starts to go back to his original state, which is dead, which is a corpse. So she shows off the full extent of her power by expanding the Hex by significant amounts, and it swallows the S.W.O.R.D base, and it takes Darcy into the Hex, which I think is going to be kind of fun to see. And Hayward is able to outrun it, but most of his agents are not. And all the people in the surrounding area of Westview are pulled into the Hex. Now, what does that have to do with mutants? Well, earlier in the episode, I'm going to go back to this conversation that Monica was having when Monica and Jimmy were getting ready to go into the Hex. She was like, okay, I got my portal back in, and Darcy's like, you can't go back in there. Every time you go through that barrier, and when you go into the Hex, and you've been there twice now at this point,
the energy inside has rewritten your cells on a molecular level twice. It's changing you.
Well, Wanda just sucked a lot of people into her Hex by expanding it out. And I kind of think now that's how the MCU is going to introduce mutants. I think people are going to get changed by being in Wanda's Hex. I think Wanda just inadvertently birthed the mutant gene by changing people's cells and changing people. And that this is how we're going to get mutants in the MCU. I could be wrong, but that was my first sort of takeaway. Not immediately when that happened. Like I immediately thought like, oh, you're doing this in order to save Vision, and it's going to be kind of cool to see. But like the repercussion of expanding out this Hex and the fact that the Hex changes all these people. So also think about it like when Darcy was looking at the monitor to see Vision in there, and the fact that Hayward was tracking Vision, you saw all these other dots, blue dots around him, and they were like, who are these people? These are people who are on the outskirts. They are not really part of Wanda's simulation, and you think, oh, did she just forget who all these people are? But there's a lot of people who are in that town, and there's a lot of people who have the ability to now have been changed on a molecular level, the way that Monica was when she went back and forth in and out. Maybe that's also the thing that gives Monica her powers eventually, because Monica Rambeau has been known to have powers in the Marvel comics. But I think that and the MCU just figured out how they're going to bring mutants into this universe, and I, for that reason alone, cannot wait to figure out where we're going. So that's my theory. I'm putting it out there after episode 6, and I want to hear from you guys whether you think that that's accurate or not, so hit me up in the comments down below. Let's catch up with Agnes. This episode seems to puncture a massive hole in a theory that I had leading up to this, that Agnes was the one that was still manipulating Wanda. And I'm not ready to give up on that theory wholeheartedly, but this episode seemed to really point to the fact that Wanda is the one who is controlling all of this. And I kept in my back pocket that Agnes has made a bunch of weird references and has popped up at different times throughout the episode, like to distract Wanda, like when Wanda was holding the S.W.O.R.D helicopter, and it was the first splash of color, and then Agnes showed up and was like, hey, it's the star of the show, kind of thing. And distracted Wanda from her thing. And then there's another reference too, which I'm going to get to in my next point, which is about the devil being in the details, and it's Agnes who leans over and says, that's not the only place that he is. And I was like, okay, Agnes, you're up to something else. And then I also caught in the opening credit sequence of this episode that Agnes, when she's got her head in the refrigerator, that she's got naughty written across the back of her pants. And I thought, like, okay, that's another hat tip to the fact that I think Agnes has ulterior motives that are being hidden by this show. And, you know, the naughty kind of said, I was like, all right, yeah, I get it. Agnes is definitely still potentially the one who's pulling Wanda's strings. Because at the end of episode number 5, if you go back and revisit Wanda's conversation with Vision, he says, like, where are all the children in Westview? How come I don't see any of the children? I walk past that park on my way to work every single day, and there are no kids. What are you doing with them? And Wanda says something along the lines of, like, do you honestly believe that I am the one in control of all of this? That I'm the one who makes sure that these people get off to their jobs and the kids go off to school? And when she said it that way, I thought, maybe you're not. Like, maybe you are being manipulated to a certain extent. And I came around to the fact that maybe Wanda had made a deal with the devil, or in the MCU, the devil would be Mephisto. Mephisto, I think, is still going to be involved in WandaVision somehow, and I know we're running out of episodes, but then this episode kind of, like I said, blew a hole through the fact that Agnes is the one who is pulling Wanda's strings some way, or manipulating Wanda, in the fact that she really did seem like she's part of the simulation, and that Wanda is controlling her the way that she was controlling Norm, and when Vision snaps her out of it, she's quick to say, like, are you here to help us? You're an Avenger. Please save us. But she didn't react or panic the way that Norm did, like, I got to get out of here. I've got a life outside of this. She just added a lot of finality to the fact that, like, Wanda won't let us leave. Like, there's no getting out of this. And, this is the end of the line, this Ellis Road. And Ellis has to mean something, but it's eluding me right now. I'm not quite sure what Ellis refers to. I'm going to do some research into that today. Maybe it's a Marvel editor or an artist or someone who wrote some stories of early Avengers films. But this episode seemed to imply, or wanted to at least suggest very strongly, that Agnes is not responsible at all for what's going on with Wanda. That it's very much Wanda. That Agnes is another victim in Wanda's bubble. And maybe that's misdirect, but I'm starting to believe now that just Marvel on its surface, because then again, Agnes is the one that sort of killed Sparky and seemed to be testing Wanda to see if she had the ability to bring stuff back from the dead. Like, the way that Catherine Hahn gets that line reading of,
you can do that?
Like, that felt like a test to me when I was watching that. But again, here we get Agnes clearly under the control of Wanda. Yes, she made a wrong turn. Yes, she got lost in the simulation. Doesn't seem like something that you would be able to do. Vision asking her whether she got lost in a town that she's grown up in her entire life might imply that she's not from that town. Yeah, there's a lot with Agnes going on still. I'm still trying to figure that out as we go through it. Okay, what the devil is up with Tommy and Billy? There's a line that's in there for a very specific reason. When Pietro is taking the kids out for Halloween trick-or-treating, he shouts out to them at the very beginning, "Unleash hell, demon spawn!" The twins seem to be, here we're back on Mephisto. The twins seem to be the product of Mephisto wanting Wanda to deliver all-powerful twin babies. And the twins have power now. Tommy, I believe, is the one that has Pietro's speed. Billy seems to have Wanda's ability to manipulate things, or to at least read people's minds. Although he was dressed like the Sorcerer Supreme. Wasn't he supposed to look like Doctor Strange with that cape? The headband threw me off, but he absolutely looked like Doctor Strange in his Halloween costume. But that line, "Unleash hell, demon spawn," that's like an elbow, like, see, they really are created by Mephisto. So let's go down that theory of Wanda doesn't 100% remember how she was able to create the hex, the reality that allows her to live with Vision. And there were references early on in the show where they said, if Wanda's actually doing this, then she's doing something, she's using more power than we even thought was possible by her standards. And so she doesn't remember doing it. She remembers being deeply upset, right? And a friend of mine floated this theory, and the more that we get closer into WandaVision, the more that I'm starting to believe that this is right. Because there are a lot of devil references sprinkled throughout the show, whether it be Agnes leaning over and saying that, the devil's in the details, and she leans over and says, that's not the only place that he is. And you're like, okay, the devil's going to be part of this. I'm sure there are other references that are sprinkled throughout it. Quicksilver shouting out, "Unleash hell, demon spawn," absolutely refers to it. There are moments when Wanda is not able to control the twins, like her power doesn't have an impact on them. They're crying. She tries to use her spell to stop them. They do not stop crying. When she tells them they can't have a pet until they are a certain age, they age up and she can't control them. There are a lot of references to the fact that they're out of control. So a friend of mine had this theory where he said at the end of Avengers Endgame, let's say that Wanda is so grief-stricken at the loss of Vision that she makes a deal with the devil to say, I want to have a reality where Vision and I can be together. And the devil says, I can give you that. I can give you the power to create this simulation. And you two can live happily ever after in this sitcom world, pulled from your memories, essentially. But what is the devil going to get in return? Well, the devil's going to get these children who will have powers and be all powerful and not be under Wanda's control. That makes them seem like demon spawn, of which Quicksilver called them. So that's where I'm at right now with this. There's a pretty funny nod, too, that people might not have picked up on when Pietro says he's going to use his speed powers in order to run the twins around the town, and one of the twins shouts, kick ass, and then Elizabeth Olsen says, kick ass. And I was like, oh, you want to know why that's funny? Because Evan Peters and Aaron Taylor Johnson, the original MCU Quicksilver, were in the movie Kick-Ass together. And so that was a fun little nod to their history. So, the devil references are obvious. Not obvious. They obviously mean something. Maybe the devil is still Catherine Hahn. I'm not off that train just yet, but I think that there's something else going on there, and Vision obviously is now able to lie to Wanda and manipulate her overall plan by saying that he's on the evening watch or the neighborhood watch, and she says that's not what you're supposed to do, but then is able to sort of gloss over it. Okay, let's get to just some lingering questions that we have after this episode. Who is Monica going to meet up with? She was going to meet up with another contact who was going to be her portal into the Hex. I don't know who that is. And if she was getting to the point where she was going to meet this person over the ridge, and then all of them get pulled into the Hex, the importance of who that person is, if the Hex is in fact turning people into mutants, the importance of who that person is could be really significant as we get forward here. What was Hayward hiding? That file that Darcy finally broke through that she sent to Jimmy Woo was called Cataract. Sounds significant. Seems like S.W.O.R.D was absolutely onto something else. There's also more of an indication of the fact that Monica Rambeau has a history with Captain Marvel. That is not explored in this episode, but again is another thing that's just sort of a dart thrown into the board. It says, like, we're going to get to this later. That's pretty important. It's pretty interesting, too, that Pietro has the memories of the Age of Ultron version, and that when he corpses out, briefly, the way that Vision sort of corpsed out, he has the bullet wounds that Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver had. But Wanda can't quite figure out why he looks so different, why he's the X-Men version of it. So that's still a bit of an unknown. Oh, and let's talk about the Yo Magic advertisement and what I think that means. So here we have a kid who is on a deserted island, a little castaway, done with claymation, and really cool throwback to the way that some of those animated commercials used to be done. He has an issue. He's struggling. He's starving. And he's given a snack by a shark called Yo Magic. And this snack is supposed to solve the kid's problem. But this kid is not able to open the snack. Magic doesn't actually solve his problems. And this kid wastes away and dies. My literal translation of that is that Wanda is using magic to distract her from her issue, which is grief. But the magic isn't working. The Yo Magic snack is not getting to Wanda. And Wanda is not able to solve her grief with this problem. And this boy wastes away and dies. Kind of like Vision did, and I hope that fate's not waiting Wanda. I doubt that it is. I'm pretty sure Marvel's going to keep her around, especially if she's the creator of Mutants, which again I think is the big thing that happened in this week's episode. So we will see. That's everything that I pretty much saw happen in WandaVision. There's a lot of really clever asides that people need to dissect, and we'll probably pore over. People were paying attention to the fact that The Incredibles and The Parent Trap were both name dropped on the marquee. I'm sure that there's a significance as to why those two were chosen. I put something on my own Twitter feed, Sean_O'Connell, that I thought it was a pretty blatant Spider-Man reference. There is as they're coming into the town square for the Halloween party, they close in quick on a spider, and then they cut to an inflatable who has eyes that can only be interpreted as Spider-Man costume eyes. And not that I'm saying that Spider-Man is in Westview or any way, shape, or form, but I kind of think that the production designer was hinting at the fact that, like, hey, this multiverse thing and these mutant things are going to become pretty important in the next big project that's coming as Spider-Man. So I got a kick out of that. Maybe I was reading too much into it. The Who is Monica meeting, and there's also that witness protection program guy who Jimmy Woo was looking after. So that's significant individuals that I think are going to play important parts of things that are coming up, but we don't have the answer to who they are yet. I'm fairly convinced that this is one of the most significant episodes of the season. Especially if I'm right about mutants. Like, do you guys think I'm right about mutants? I need to know your feedback of whether you think that by Wanda increasing the Hex And the hex, apparently, the energies that she's using to create the hex has a molecular change to people. I think that that's significant. And so I want to hear from you guys down in the comments below. That's our analysis of WandaVision Episode 6. You want to make sure you keep it here on CinemaBlend for all the things that we are doing with regards to WandaVision. We're going to have more interviews coming up with cast members and behind-the-scenes talents with regards to the Disney Plus show. We're going to be doing our analysis videos all the way through the season finale, so you want to make sure you keep it here on CinemaBlend. If you're watching us on YouTube, go down, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, give us a like, weigh in the comments, and then every single time we post a new WandaVision video here, you will be one of the first ones to come on over and watch it.